good?
Do I look good? I look all right?
Looking great, man, all the time.
Yeah, man.
All right.
You just saying that'd be nice, right? Yeah.
Hello, animation fans, and welcome to another iAnimate podcast. You're listening to episode 79, and we are your co-hosts. I'm Larry Vasquez, my buddy Rick Arroyo here. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing really good. New Year's is coming, right? 2021.
Coming
I'm
up.
already, I'm working on my New Year resolution, and I think everyone out there should be working on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, guess what? We got some workshops that are happening January 4th that coincide with some great New Year resolutions here. So just saying.
That's right. And, I always, if you need help being accountable and need help, starting the year right, we are definitely the place to be.
Absolutely. We've got a great podcast here. This is something we had recorded a couple weeks back with Tara Donovan. She is fantastic. She loves animation. She's been working in the industry for quite some time. She's worked on movies like Detective Pikachu, Aquaman, Blue Sky short for Ice Age, and just really loves animation. And you're going to see that through this podcast. And she'll be teaching in our new workshop starting January 4th. So fresh teacher, ready and excited to teach. So
yeah, she's full of talent and she's super committed. I mean, she sent me something, 2 days ago, and I saw it. I was like, man, she's really pumped about sharing everything to help you guys become great animators. So
all right.
Yeah.
Before we jump in, you got any notes?
Oh yeah, really I want to remind everyone that iAnimate is for everyone. It doesn't matter if you are just starting off or you don't even know, the software. You can join iAnimate. We have courses for all levels. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important to remind everyone. And secondly, this was a question that came from a student from one of the universities out there. They wanted to know if they can use iAnimate to complement their class. Absolutely. If you're in college or a university and you want to have that extra support, you can participate in iAnimate and go to your school. So you can do both at the same time, work on your assignments or at the end of your project, and we will be there to help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Lastly, I want to remind everyone that joins iAnimate, they have access to all the rigs. You also get access to Jason Ryan's animation, live
lectures, demos.
Lecture. Yeah, every week he does a new demo. It's really amazing. Jason's just awesome. And hopefully I didn't miss out anything, but please, guys, if you love what you're hearing, you like us sharing, our experience and helping you grow as an artist, please share, let people know about the podcast. We want to put positivity out there. We want to help people grow and become great artists. And it doesn't matter where they're from, anywhere in the world, doesn't matter if they're professional or students or whatever school they are. We do this for the community. We really love the animation community.
Absolutely. So like, subscribe, share. We greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get into the podcast. Well, Tara, first off, I'd love to thank you for joining us. I know it's 10 o'clock in Montreal here. It's late. You've had a full day, but we always appreciate getting our guests in on this. So we thank you very much for your time. We love to talk animation, and it's always great to hear from other people. So thank you very much for your time on this podcast.
You're super welcome. I'm really happy to be here.
All right. And you're one of our new instructors, too. So that always makes it extra fun. So we're looking forward to have you teach with us and train up some new students. So first off, how did you get into animation? Kind of talked a little bit before we got into this, and you've got other skill sets and things like that. What made you want to get into animation?
It's funny because I think I always loved cartoons and I always loved drawing. I used to keep lots of sketchbooks going and stuff. But I really have to thank or blame, I'm not sure, my parents. I think they saw the spark, just even from like watching early Looney Tunes and stuff like that. Both my parents were in the media, and my mom and dad would do stuff like they would bring home like a reel-to-reel 16mm projector and a bunch of reels from like the NFB or something, and show me like shorts and stuff like that. And it was my sister and I were just like eat it up. We loved watching these old cartoons. And then when VCRs came on board, you'd have to go to the library and rent one. And then my mom got me into like watching NFB shorts, and we just couldn't get enough of that stuff. And then when I was really young, about like 10 or something, my mom put me in sort of a Saturday morning class, like an animation weekly class.
Very
so
cool.
Just, under the camera, little cutout stuff with like whatever toothpicks and stuff. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. I couldn't get enough of it. And I never pictured myself as an animator professionally until much, much later. So I went on, did like all normal things, and went and got a degree in French. And I was thinking, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And then I was like just taking a Joe job after university, and I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? And then somebody mentioned Sheridan College, and it was like, color me stupid, but I'd never heard of it. So I was like, okay, what's that? Oh, people become animators. And so I called and I said, do you have a program? Like, when can I sign up or like whatever, apply? And they said, oh, sorry that the deadline is tomorrow. And I go, oh, okay. Well, I had been taking courses in life. So I had a portfolio weirdly assembled for no reason. And a friend of mine was like, well, let's jump in the car, get your portfolio, send it to Sheridan by FedEx. We'll get there today. And I was like, okay, random stranger helping me out. So that's what happened. I sent my portfolio, I got accepted, and I started at Sheridan. And
wow.
Yeah, it was like a hard.
That's killer. All right.
Yeah, it was just very serendipitous.
Now, are you from Canada originally?
Yes.
But not from Montreal area.
No,
So the French comes into play when you come over.
That's true.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oui, je parle français un petit peu. And my team right now is half and half French. So
that's killer. Yeah. So the French comes into play. That's why I'll be honest with you. I typically start out my questions this way because it's just kind of a neat seeing behind the scenes. But it's always kind of that deal where you go, I love seeing how life kind of plays out as you continue to go. And so here you are, you got a degree in French, and then you're in animation, which seems kind of different. And now it's coming back into play here. So I love that. It's very cool.
Everything comes back into play. I used to say that all the time when I was teaching in classes, like, there's not a single thing I could think of that you could throw at me that I couldn't relate to animation somehow. And they tried. And I'm like, no, because, it's like gardening, everything, everything relates. Every study comes back.
So now when you were at Sheridan, was, I know you mentioned you kind of grew up drawing a little bit, and I mean, which is why you had the portfolio and things like that. Was it a big learning curve for you, or did you kind of adapt pretty quick, or how did that work out for you?
Interesting. Yeah, I got into the International Summer School, which is like, I don't know if it exists anymore, but it's really different than the full year program, because I've heard like the full year program is very busy. There's 100 students, and the International Summer School was like, I think there were 20 of us or 25, and they're from all over the world, and they had to have some sort of a background already. So they accepted people who already had degrees or had been working for a while, so they were a little bit older. And I mean, we just had the run of the place. Like, we had a line tester free all the time and that kind of stuff. It was very nice to be in that environment. And because it was so culturally diverse, I felt really excited to be there just to learn from all these different kinds of people. But the one thing I did find there was a big learning curve for me was I didn't eat, live, breathe, and sleep Disney animation. Okay. And a lot of people already had been practicing how to draw in that Disney style for their whole lives. I'd never even thought of doing that before. So I was trying to kind of catch up, but there's no way, if you've been practicing drawing that way with like the construction lines and all that, that just never dawned on me when I was growing up. So I was already into life drawing, so I could do that. But the cartoon style that I sort of aspired to was a little bit more independent.
Okay. Gotcha. And that's part of the reason why I asked that too, is because it's always neat to see, excuse me, if, you're going like, yeah, I remember those struggles. I remember not having, I wasn't the one who just jumped right in and everything came natural to me.
Okay, wait, just to frame this, one of the people in my class was Dean Dubois, who directed How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right? So, and there were other people in my class that were just like equally like crazy talented people. So I was just like, why? What am I doing?
Very nice. So you went through the program. Was it a generalist type program, or was it specifically in animation?
Yeah, back then it was like a diploma in animation, and you made a film in third year, so I think your third year film kind of thing. Okay. But we did, a little animation history, a little acting for animation, life drawing, and then the rest of it was just studio time. So they'd give you an assignment, a bouncing ball, a walk cycle, or whatever, and you'd just be like head down working, flipping paper. It was all on, paper and pencil.
Yeah. Now, how did you know you wanted to get into animation specifically versus, sculpting or modeling or.
Yeah, I mean, back then, I guess I was really in love with like the NFB style. I was a big fan of like Wendy Tilby and, Janet Perlman. You probably, only a handful of people would know these names.
I'm not familiar, sorry.
No, you wouldn't be alone there. I mean, it's just Canadian animation back in the day was like, even obscure for Canadians, and I was just like fangirling over like Carolyn Leaf. And anyway, I would go to the Ottawa Animation Festival, and sometimes they would be there, and I just like, oh my god, like they were very famous, which they were not. But I just like that hand-drawn style, kind of sketchy, scratchy kind of style, not very commercially viable at the time. And everything was going towards like the Lion King style. And I was kind of going the other way. So I really wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to make short films. I wanted to work for the NFB or the CBC like Frederick Back or someone like that with like a painterly style. There wasn't any like money goal in it, Larry. I was kind of naive. I was like, it'll work out, I'll just have a part-time bartending job or something. And I just wanted to like have a simple life, crafting these auteur films, and just, I don't know, money would work itself out.
You figure you'll cross that bridge when it comes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long after you graduated were you able to get into the industry?
Well, that was interesting because like my little plan of just being like a little, terror in the attic, kind of got derailed out of second year because Richard Williams in England was finishing his great big Thief and the Cobbler. He was in the last year, and he got a big influx of money from investors to finish the film, and so hired an army of in-betweeners and, animators from around the world. So I went there with two other classmates of mine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's killer.
Out of second year. Yeah. I think we had to send some stuff in. And anyway, so we flew to England and we worked for Richard Williams for a year. And
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Had you been overseas before?
No.
Okay. So whole new experience, huh? Whole new experience.
Didn't know what I was doing.
See, it would just kind of all work out, huh?
Yeah. I knew basically, there was a small gap between the end of my Sheridan second year and starting like 2 months or 3 months. And I got a little tiny like gig at Hinton Animation in Ottawa on the Raccoons television show. And they were like, here's your scene folder. And I opened it up and there was just like random paper with some keys and a dope sheet and here's a pencil. And I was like, oh, and I just looked around to see what everybody was doing. And I guess I know how to do this. But you just kind of learn on the job.
Yeah.
And I got to England and it was like that. Like we were just thrown right in the deep end and we were doing all these like really meticulous in-betweens, 12 hours a day. And so there I met all these people that were like really incredible senior artists and got to work for some of the best animators in the world at the time. And they'd worked on all these big films, and that kind of opened my mind to like what the possibilities were to have a real career in animation.
Yeah, for sure. What were some of the things, and obviously that's, you're pretty green, but what were some of the things that really shaped and formed you during that time for your career?
Well, I mean, in early days, it was like just learning the craft itself. Like you really aren't any good until you've been in it for a little while. And I think just it was such an amazing start to my career because I got to be the assistant for a whole bunch of really amazing animators. And that doesn't really exist anymore with computers. They just give you a scene and you kind of get like, sometimes you get background characters or something's maybe not as front and center, or you work on lower budget projects until you work your way up. But there isn't that apprenticeship that was built into classical animation, which I really appreciated. What would happen was they would give you like in-betweening, and then when you showed you had you could be trusted, then they would give you assisting work, which is like they leave a lot of details out. And the more they trust you, the more details they leave out, until they just basically give you like a drawing and then some lollipops, they call them, which just like where it represents where the head goes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I'd be like, I'd see how busy they were, and I'd be like, you don't need to finish that. I'll let me, So I'd just like ask for more. Like just do the flag poles, and I'll put the flags on, or just I'll put the clothes on them, or whatever. And it's like they give you more and more and more responsibility.
Nice.
Until and I loved it. Or they'd be like, I don't have time to do these guys, and I'd be like, I'll do them, and then so you get little pieces of animation, and then you're an animator. No, it doesn't work like that. Then you have to convince somebody that you can take shots, and then that transition is brutal.
One of the things that Rick and I spoke about with Patrick, our previous podcast, and it kind of sounds a little bit something similar what you're talking about here, was we talked a lot about just that idea of that hard work. And kind of like we talked about earlier, that grind. But one of the things that Rick had mentioned, and just I went, yes, that patience aspect. Because because you said, and you became an animator. It's like, no, not really, because sometimes that's what we think. It's just, well, I've just put in this amount of time and I'm good to go. But this is an art form. It's a craft. It takes years and years. So when you're talking about that too, it feels like that's part of the thing that you're saying here too. It's just that patience to continue in and get the shots.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I really didn't know. I mean, I'm glad I didn't know how much work was ahead because it was really intense. I mean, I'm doing like carpal tunnel, and it's like, oh, it's so difficult. And I think when you're starting out, it's so competitive, and all the people around you are so passionate and everything. And it's just like people who are doing that for a living. I mean, we've all got to be a little bit OCD, and it's just like sitting there. At some points when I was working in Richard Williams, I had a big like jeweler's magnifying glass on my table, and I was animating these big creatures that were like a half a centimeter high.
Wow.
And like with a mechanical pencil, and I was just like 12 hours a day, just like over my table. And it's like you can't even breathe. Like you have to, you're working on this giant paper and everything. It's just you have to focus so much on what you're doing that nothing else exists. Everything else just drops away. And you better like it because it's really hard. And I think actually the animation job itself, like if you don't want to do that kind of hard work, it will just, I think it won't be comfortable. I think a lot of people drop out after about 5 years, if you know what I mean? Because they're like, I don't think I could see myself doing this for 25 years.
Yeah. But I think it's partly also what makes it so rewarding too, because when you've got that behind you and now you're kind of getting in that flow and rhythm.
Oh, it gets easier. Really, I mean, it gets
in some ways, yes.
Ratcheting up.
Yes. Yeah. But it
gets easier because you know what to expect.
Yeah.
And I think it's so hard. Like I went through it again when I learned computer animation because, not to skip too far ahead too fast, but it's like the computer learning curve was big as well.
Okay.
So, but I had done it once, so I could do it again.
I do want to get into that, but so from the time over at with Richard Williams in England, what transpired after that?
I had the most interesting little segue because after that job, I got in with I got a tip about a job at Russell Hall, who was like one of Dick Williams' right-hand guys, and he went out on his own and he did. I don't know if this is a long time ago, but he did the Fido Dido 7-Up ads and stuff like that on his own. But he hired me to be his assistant on a P&O Fairies commercial using pencil crayon on frosted cells, which is a really cool technique because it looks like pencil crayon drawings come to life and everything. So it was just him, and she was like this 40-year veteran of the industry, Russell, and me in this little courtyard house, and we just like sat in silence, and he would just hand me drawings, and I would just in between them and hand me drawings. And then he would tell stories from the industry, and he would tell me stories about Dick Williams, who I had just left. They didn't really get along anymore. I was just eating it up. I was like 23 years old or something like that. And my head was just full of stories from the industry, from England, from all that stuff. It was a really amazing experience.
That's very cool. So you spent quite a bit of time in England and animating.
Yeah, I only full just a little bit over a year.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then that gave me the opportunity. I met, that's the thing, your paths cross with so many people whenever you move. And I'd grown up moving around a lot. My family moved to CBC like every 3-4 years. So I was used to that, like packing up and moving. So I went from there. I went back to Canada for a bit, but then I went to Berlin because of the people that I met in London. They were like, oh, this company, they're hiring on this film. So I did a test for them. And like 2 or 3 years later, they offered me jobs. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
A lot of luck, like good fortune, paths crossing. That presented themselves.
Real quick, your mic.
Oh.
Can you pull it maybe just a tad closer?
Yeah.
There we go.
Does this work better?
Yeah. Perfect.
There.
It was clear, but kind of it would drop a little bit, so I can adjust it afterwards. But
okay.
I just want to make sure. Perfect.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, you bet. So you said that was in Berlin. So were you there for quite a bit? You moved back to Canada, or?
Yeah, I went back to Montreal.
Okay.
I went to Berlin to work on an Asterix and Obelix feature.
Oh yeah, very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not real familiar with it, but I've seen some of the stuff with it. It's always pretty fun. I've seen some of the CG stuff they had come out with afterwards too.
Yeah, which was really fun to see. Actually, it adapted well to CG, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to go to. I had such a good time in Berlin, and learned from some really great people there. Didn't learn a lot of German because they all speak English, but but I really enjoyed myself there, and they hired me to be a senior animator, which was pretty daunting because at the time I didn't have that much experience. I had like 3 years. So I did my best. I worked hard. Yeah, it was a really amazing experience.
Now, that was you still in Berlin, and then you
Mhm.
mentioned then you moved back to
Yeah,
Montreal.
I went like London, Montreal. I went to Vancouver for a little bit and then to Berlin.
Okay.
Gets complicated there. It's
Yeah.
like too much.
So what brought you back then to Canada home?
Canada, I mean, there's a pull, right? Like you feel like you want to be back in your home country. I think I
Okay.
enjoy traveling for work. I really did, but yeah, I just wanted to be back. There's some really interesting things happening here too. There was like Pascal Blay and Michael Mills and some really good commercial operations. And I really like commercials because you're doing like something new every month or so.
Yeah, yeah. Now, was
Mhm.
this still all in 2D?
Yes.
Okay. So when did the transition to 3D come into play?
Oh my gosh. So I stayed in 2D for a while until like I think around 1995. I moved to Vancouver, and I got to
Okay.
work with one of my longtime heroes, Marv Newland, who had a company called International Rocket Ship,
Oh,
which
okay.
was just, I mean, it's so off the wall bonkers. Like he did commercial ventures to pay for short films. So he was my idol because he was making it work. He was doing his own auteur films and paying for it with commercial work. And I was like, I got
Nice.
to meet this guy. He was amazing. And I got to work on the Gary Larson. Um,
I know who Gary Larson is.
yeah, Gary, exactly. I'm starting to get into the early.
Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da, right?
Gary Larson's cartoons were pretty famous at the time, but they were trying to adapt them for like shorts. They were like blending a whole bunch of cartoon strips together to make narratives. And Marv was definitely the right person to do it. And I was so excited to work for him. So that was in Vancouver. And then I got pregnant and I had a baby. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So I was able to, we actually moved back to Toronto at that point, and I was going to be like part-time freelance, like I'd been doing in Vancouver. I was
Uh-huh.
working part-time sometimes and working on my own film. And anyway, but that's really difficult to do with the little guy. So at a certain point, I got a job at Centennial College, and I was teaching animation principles there in the computer animation lab.
Oh,
And
okay.
animation principles using like drawing on the blackboard on the whiteboard and showing films and doing like film breakdowns. And but I hadn't the faintest idea how to use a computer. I didn't I didn't even have an email address. So I think I had a cell phone. Anyway, they used to tease me all the time because I was just like very analog. And so then I was like, okay, well, the jobs just disappeared for hand-drawn animation around that time. And so I had to buckle down and learn CG really quick.
Now, did you do it while you were teaching then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did it like literally like I'm like, and that's all I have to say about walk cycles. And then I would sit down and be like, now I have to do a walk cycle. And I'm like, hey guys, how do you open Maya?
Yeah, yeah. And I said a key. How?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really funny.
Very cool. That's a neat. It sounds like a cool opportunity, though, when you're doing this gig, just having had a little one, but it now afforded you to be able to also start learning CG animation.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, actually, it was kind of humbling, like to be thrown into the deep end once
Hmm.
again. And, I had to jump into, I got my first job at George Eliot. He gave me an opportunity to work on Brachioardigans, which was like,
Oh, okay.
5 characters singing and dancing.
Yeah.
He's like, can you hit the ground running? And I was like, sure.
Yeah. I know how to animate. Yeah. Yeah. Were you somewhat hesitant or resistant to CG, or was it just, hey, I love animation, I got to keep moving?
To be honest, I actually was a little bit daunted by the interface, which still feels a little bit like clunky to me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not sure how you would make it more Terra friendly. It's just I didn't grow up with computers, and I was never drawn to them. So it's always still I get up in the morning and I'm like, turn on my computer and I got a keyboard and I get this and I get the Cintiq and everything. But it's as good as it can be. I do have days now where when I get enough hours to work in the day, I forget about the interface completely, and I'm just totally immersed in my shot. And on the other side, drawing is not easy either.
Right. Yes.
I mean, it doesn't look as good as it does in my head, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha.
And to be fair, like I think honestly, eventually I would have hit that wall with my animation anyway, because the drawing was probably the skill that was holding me back the most.
Okay.
So I thought, I'm just going to dive into computer animation. You don't have to draw anything. All the animation characters are already there.
Gotcha.
And then you got
Gotcha.
to figure out how to use the interface. And now that I have more of a handle on it, it feels much more like home.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha. Now, do you use your 2D? Okay, so for example, Jason Ryan, our head of character animation, oftentimes he'll do a 2D pass, very rough, just to kind of help get his ideas out. Do you use any of that, or is it just when the thumbnails, or how do you? What's your workflow?
Sure do. I do. It's thumbnails for sure. I love thumbnails. I love looking at other people's thumbnails too. It's just like I love it because it's literally like a brain dump, and it doesn't even matter if they're nice. It's just like there's so much energy and life in them. But yeah, I don't think there's been a project that I've worked on yet where I haven't had to do a hand-drawn animation pass for some reason. Like it really shocked me. Like a couple of times they're just like, "Oh, this model's not ready. Do you think you could draw something?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Yeah.
I have to do a hand-drawn pass where it's like just to sell it to the client or just to test it out. And so I'm in Maya and grease pencil. And
Right.
I love grease pencil. I mean, it's so janky, but it works great. And even on something like Justice League, Wonder Woman's lasso. Oh my god.
Okay. Okay.
Like
Nice.
7 million controls too many. So it's just so hard to control that thing. And so we all, as a kind of a team, a couple of us are all like hand-drawn animation people, and we're like, let's just draw it. So like we're grease penciling away the lasso, and then you just have to like match it at the
That's
end.
wonderful. Yeah.
They let us do that. And then I did a couple of shots where it's not NDA, I don't think anymore. Like the Flash was like falling and running around and stuff, and it was just too difficult to block it without getting the ideas out. So I spent a couple of days and just like drew stuff, and like people are like, "What are you doing?" Because I don't think that's a normal workflow for VFX.
Yeah. Probably not VFX. Yeah, for sure.
But it's so handy. It's like Jason stuff. It's like just you get the idea out of your head and into the scene really quickly.
Yeah, nice. Now, just out of curiosity, with the VFX on, it was sorry, real quick, Justice League. So much. What part of those were CG? Was it the full character that you guys were doing? You brought up the Flash. I noticed in your reel, there's a shot with that where he gets hit and he's hits up against the. So yeah, really nice. So I mean, that's all CG.
Yeah, it's called a takeover shot. In that case, there was like a few frames of he comes in from live action. There's like a plate and nothing, and then and then more plate. So they would shoot like. The guy might be come in from one side and then just land on the crash mat or something like that. And they would say the takeover frame is 27.
Okay.
And then they would shoot him like the poor guy, like landing in a heap of mats or something. So like the takeover frame there would be whatever, 497. So you have to like make it blend seamlessly.
Wow.
And you get help from like roto artists and stuff. They'll position, maybe they'll do like a one frame match or something so that you can start in the right place and end in the right place. But
how did you get into
it seamless?
Yeah. How did you get into VFX?
Well, that was also very lucky. I was working in a little studio, and I worked for this lovely guy, Sean Coughlin, and he told me about a studio in Vancouver called Scanline, which I hadn't really heard that much about. My husband actually got a job in Vancouver Animal Logic, so I was thinking, okay, well, I had a really cool job at the time, but I knew eventually I was going to have to move to Vancouver. So I started looking around, and Sean sort of tipped me off to this great studio, Scanline, these guys that worked there that he knew. So I threw in my resume, and it's like, I mean, my demo reel at the time there, he was like cartoons, children's TV, all this kind of stuff. And I looked at their demo reels, and it's all like, angry skeletons on fire. And I'm like, okay, things exploding,
the
like
walls are dancing. Yeah.
And it's like there's a lot of destruction, and Scanline is very well known for their water effects and blowing stuff up. So I looked at them and I'm like, I don't know if this is a good match. Anyway, I had a nice interview with those guys and they hired me to work on Justice League. And I was like, kablam, I love that idea.
Very
I
cool.
went out there, and they just started me up. They gave me shots with, Batman, Superman.
That's awesome.
Wonder Woman. Yeah, it worked out. It worked out super well. I
cool.
Loved it.
Did you see yourself in, I'm thinking the 2D realm and stuff like that, to then you're like, I'm animating Wonder Woman and Batman and Superman and,
Yeah, I remember I was saying, like, when I started animation, I was drawn to animation because of that lovely hand drawing.
Yeah,
the auteur, the Carolyn Leaf doing, like, this, rotoscope, like, leaves blowing in the wind and stuff. And then I'm like, that I worked on, basically like monsters punching each other and stuff. I guess I have another side.
Yes, right.
I love monster movies. And back in when we were talking about my early influences, I left out the whole Ray Harryhausen stuff because Sinbad and all that stuff. My sister and I were really into that. And then when I had a little guy and was raising him, we got really into, Godzilla and King Kong and all that stuff.
Which you got to work on, right?
Yes, I did.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah. So it all comes back.
Yeah, there you go. When you're on the floor playing with your little guy in the...
Yeah, I know. Gosh.
Godzilla.
So yeah.
Very cool.
It was really fun to segue into a brand new career. So, I mean, I've reinvented my career many times just because of, circumstance. And also I have that curiosity. And when somebody says, well, would you like to try, this other new thing? I'm always like, darned if I would. I did a lot of cartoons. I did a lot of kids TV and I did some really beautiful projects. And then I was like, oh, what if I worked on, bombastic AAA blockbusters? And it was a blast. Yeah.
Well, that's funny too, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I asked you earlier, if you were still going to be at Cinesite with Jason, and you said, well, actually took a job with, who was it again?
I'm going to be working with Game On.
Game On, and doing video games. So new realm for you there too. So I like your adventureness or your curiosity for different parts of the animation industry.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I'll never get bored. That's for sure. It's never a dull moment.
And you've worked in cartoony stuff. I saw on your reel you did some stuff with Ice Age and
the Ice Age show. That was really fun.
What did you enjoy about that?
Well, actually, what I loved about that was they were so rubber hosey, we got to use post-based deformers to really punch up the expressions and stuff. So I keep on like this because there's one shot where this character had to go what? And do a real weird Tex Avery type of take. And of course you can't get that with the model out of the box, but you get to literally use tools to push and pull the mesh and all that. Lots of drawovers. I had a lovely team. We had 3 leads on that show. I had a little team of I think 10 people, mostly juniors. And it was just tons and tons of hands-on, frame by frame, trying to punch up those shots and really make the most of all their skills. They were so talented.
Those are fun times.
It was.
Those working collaboratively like that on projects. Yeah. Now, who was that for?
That was for Art Productions, was subcontracted by Blue Sky. So we worked closely with Blue Sky, but they subcontract some of their smaller productions and shorts. So that went straight to iTunes.
Gotcha.
It was an Easter special.
Okay.
So we got to use Scrat and all those, the famous characters.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was just thinking that you were going to say something else. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No. Sorry.
Okay. So just need to see the variety of, 2D to rubber hose characters to, ultra realistic monsters.
I know, right?
And Wonder Woman, and then here you're going to go into video games. So
I know. I was like, okay, now I'm going to focus on, character animation and work with, people at Cinesite and all these. I know people. My husband works at Cinesite, and then this opportunity came up, and it's so unusual. I'm not a gamer. I don't play games at all. I played the Untitled Goose Game.
Which one?
The Untitled Goose Game. It's really fun, Larry. You're a goose, and all you do is cause trouble and honk at things. That is the game. That's the only game I play. But the people that interviewed me, they said, we don't care. That's not what we're looking for. We don't want a gamer per se. We want a lead. We want somebody who can bring up the animation skills, somebody with the effects experience, somebody.
Nice.
They work on so many projects at the same time.
Very cool.
So, all different styles. I got the different styles.
You
Versatility.
That's right. You got your what's the Batman? He's got his
Yeah,
utility
totally.
belt.
My
You're
utility
just
belt.
all over here.
Absolutely.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Now,
I
what does
can't
your
get it.
husband do?
He is a modeling supervisor.
Okay, very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's what just like I said earlier. You mentioned your son is more in the math
The
and
TD,
technical and
yeah.
TD stuff. So I'm just
We're
I
hoping
love that about our industry. That doesn't matter where you're at, you find something that you could use your talents in. So yeah, that's very
so
very
right.
cool.
Yeah.
Very neat. So we were talking about the VFX. How much time did you spend in the VFX industry?
I was there for 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and I worked on Aquaman, and then I got to work on the Meg, that one with the Jason Statham with the big shark.
Yeah. I haven't seen that one. One of my kids want to see it though. One of them wants
It
like,
is
can we
so
watch that
funny.
one? Is
Yeah.
it really?
Yeah, it's not. Well, I mean, it's gross, but how old are you?
Well, the one that wants to see it's 17. So yeah.
Oh yes, definitely. It's
He's
like Crawl. It's like a really creepy, but it's very funny. They kind of ham it up. A little.
Okay.
Got a bit of a cartoony humor to it. And I got to go to NPC for a while and work on the Pikachu movie.
I saw that you had that. That looked like a lot of fun to animate on.
Yeah, it was a guess actually.
We had Scott Wright. Did you work with him on that one?
No, I think we either didn't cross paths or he was at a different facility. But
Okay.
I was in, NPC.
Well, you worked at you said at NPC on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. He was at Cinesight, their VFX one when he worked on
Oh.
that. So I just assumed that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he worked
Right
on
on.
that one. So yeah. Now, what did you enjoy about that project?
Well, I mean, again, it was like a bit of a return to my cartoony roots because it was funny because I went from like cartoony stuff to VFX, serious like live action, and then this seemed like the perfect hybrid project. And getting back into leading again, which has always been fun for me, and huge teams, like over 60 animators.
Wow.
A
Okay.
whole bunch of leads. There were 6 of us, and it was like 2 supervisors. It was just massive. That project had so many characters.
Yeah.
Ah.
Now, obviously each character has a different style and stuff like that. How many different characters did you work on?
I mean, I don't think I'm exaggerating if I say 60, but the whole thing is like a blur now, Larry. It's like it went by so fast.
Well, you got to catch them all. There's a lot to catch.
I have a thing about when there's like a lot of characters in a scene. I guess you could even call them crowd shots. Like we have a crowd department, but when it's still like 12 characters or 24 characters, it's not done by crowds. It's done, hand key framed and everything. I break out the spreadsheets and I get pretty organized, and that gets me like more work like that. So I did a lot of the large character shots. I haven't made a lead reel yet, but I will at some point before I start teaching in January.
All right.
A couple of the really beautiful iconic shots, like the opening sequence where they're arriving at the train station and there's all these like characters flying around, and that was one of mine. And then I think there's like over 100 characters in that shot.
Gosh,
I know.
How do you approach a shot like that? Just how do you not
It's trepidation.
I love that. That's great.
Definitely beware.
that shot right out. You didn't even have to think about that one. That's
Lordy.
nice.
How do we approach it? I mean, honestly, I try to focus. This is really serious, though. I focus on what the camera's going to see. So the characters that are really big, crossing in front of the camera, they got to look nice, right?
Uh-huh.
But you got to, when you look at the planes or focus, when you get back in depth, audience isn't going to see as closely. So it's really hard. You can't focus on everything at the same time.
Uh-huh.
So you're going to have your main characters coming in. He's got Pikachu or whatever. You got to like really zero in on that, because you can get lost in like what to focus on.
Mm.
But in a case like that, you'd have an army of 8 people or something, and everybody would be doing a bunch of characters. Try to use as much reuse as possible. I think really organization in that situation is key. Like, what can you reuse? Maybe put it from a different angle. Like, yeah, you got.
Do you use something like Studio Library, or did the studio have their own?
We had a library.
Okay. Yeah, I've used Studio Library and really, really like that one. That one's so I don't know if you guys had
very helpful.
One in your proprietary or not when you were there.
No, I think we used that one actually.
Okay. Yeah, that one's really nice. Oh, I'm sorry. I just that
You're giving me
trepidation
flashbacks.
just boom. That was right out the bat.
Really tough. And I got to do that lovely there. If you haven't seen it, there's a beautiful sequence where the Bulbasaurs are going. No spoilers, I guess. They're going through this ravine, and it's a big reveal in one of the earlier trailers. So the Bulbasaurs are running through the bottom of the ravine, and then there's all these morals and creatures flying in the air. And Pikachu is not feeling too great at that point, and it's like a really poignant moment, and it's just layer after layer after layer of effects, and it looks gorgeous.
Very cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've not seen it, but my kids have, and they really really liked it. So I definitely need to
it's a
check that
fun
one
show.
out just for the animation stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too funny. And that was at MPC. Did you work on any other projects there during that time? You said
No, I went there specifically to work, for my supervisor actually, Clem. Yep, and then I wanted to work on Pikachu very
Gotcha.
much, and then I got a chance to go back to Scanline, and I really enjoyed my time there, and I got to work on, Godzilla versus King Kong. So.
Gotcha.
There was a little segue in between where Animal Logic sent my husband to Australia, and I had to go with him.
Oh, that's too bad.
So
I'm sorry.
I had to hang out on the beach for a couple months.
Very nice.
Quite
Very
laughing.
nice. So were you working over there too, or are you getting just
Oh,
to enjoy yourself?
hung out.
Oh,
Drank
that's even
tons
better.
of
Nice time off,
Australian.
huh?
Yeah, Australia is amazing.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It was someday. I hope everyone can see it. It's just an incredible place.
Very cool. And
Yeah,
then
we
you said that was
travel
at
around.
where? At
He was at Animal, so we were in
Animal Logic.
Sydney.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and we traveled. We went to Uluru, and we went to the Great Barrier Reef and Melbourne. Like basically, we went somewhere every weekend. We just see as much as possible in 2 months. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. So that brings you back to Canada, and then you jump into where?
To back to Scanline. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And that was on the
The
Godzilla
Godzilla.
versus King Kong.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the things I love about this is we've had, I forget his name off the top of my head because it's kind of getting late.
Yeah.
But he worked on at Weta, and then he went over to Sony, where he worked on Cloud with a Chance of Meatballs, and he had the hamburger with the French fries.
Oh, I love
And
that.
it comes out here, and it looked real VFX-y. And they're like, okay, this is great weight, but this is cartoony. So just kind of that adjustment, or, vice versa, coming from cartoony to something like that, where you got to kind of, did you find that adjustment, periods and things like that? Okay.
That's such a funny story because I remember I had this, I think it was like the villain in Justice League was Steppenwolf, and there's some sort of, oh no, maybe it was Aquaman. Anyway, there's a punching sequence, and I remember my supervisor Eric was like, yeah, you can't just like have like the before frame and then the after frame like Hanna-Barbera. You actually have to show them, and I'm like, right. It's like pow,
It could look too cartoon, or the old 70s Batman ones. Yeah.
I've done a lot of punches. And usually leave that frame on. Yeah. I think I didn't get dinged too much for like too much cartoony. I kind of really tried to immerse myself in like if they can tell it's VFX, then you've done it wrong because it's supposed to look real, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, gotcha. That's a great advice there. But again, I can imagine on Godzilla versus King Kong, the weight and that you're having to sell. Was there anything that helped you with that?
Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to segue into powerlifting.
Okay, very cool. Very cool.
So I powerlift, and it's 3 lifts, so squat, bench, deadlift, and squat is definitely something I struggle with, and I'm afraid of it. Like I've literally got 200 pounds on my back, and all you have to do is go down and back up again, and put that weight, that force, just pressing down on all of your bones and into the floor, and just mastering it. Like I've hired coaches, I've spent hundreds of hours working on it, and so anyway, so I'm very conscious of like my center of mass and force of gravity and how all of your weight has to push down to like this very small base of support. Push straight up, otherwise there's energy leaks and you can get injured, but it also is just not an efficient use of your energy, right? So here I'm animating. I can't, it's too bad the movie's not out yet, but anyway, this giant monster, and it's like every step it takes, I can feel it in my bones. I'm not even exaggerating.
That's cool.
I can just feel, I can see where the plumb lines are. And there's like every once in a while, I'm like, oh no, his knee is veering out. That's, he's got knee valgus, they call it. And I'm like, oh, pull that pivot back. And it's just that physicality, like just being used to carrying heavy weights.
Mm.
It does translate into your animation. You know the effort it takes to pick your leg up off the floor if it weighs. Well,
You're not having to imagine it. You've had 200 pounds on your back. You know what it feels like to actually have to.
Not that that's a lot, because some people lift a lot more than that, but that's all for me.
That's a good amount of weight. Now, for those that are kind of listening and haven't maybe checked out your bio, this is something we talked about right before we actually hit record. But you're an NASM certified personal trainer. So can you tell us a little about that? And that's now that'll kind of help probably make some more sense of what you're talking about here.
Yeah, I do like taking courses and getting certified. But I've been a gym rat for a really long time. I started lifting weights about a dozen years ago, and I just fell in love with it. So I love heavy barbells and weights and weight equipment, and I take it pretty seriously. I work out, 3 to 5 days a week. Started competitive powerlifting and all that stuff, and I just decided I was starting to get questions. People were asking me, like workout advice and stuff, and I thought, oh God, I don't know what I'm saying. So I wanted to get some sort of education. I thought, just for my own edification, but also so that I don't, give people bad advice. So I looked for a certification that I could do in my spare time because I was working full time, in case I wanted to help people in a more formal way, like just as a hobby, but to coach. And so I looked at all the different certifications, and I picked the National Academy of Sports Medicine just because it's a more sciencey kind of course. And well, it was more than I bargained for. This happens a lot when you you take on something new. You're like, I had no idea how much work this was.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about getting personal training certification, perhaps wait till you're on vacation. I was studying all the time. Like every night I studied like 3 to 4 hours, and it went on for months. And it was really hard, but I passed. And so you have to learn a lot about like energy systems and the way your heart works and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's interesting. It's crazy interesting. And now like I have coached 1 or 2 people just, remotely, and it's something I can always do.
I love that. Yeah. The reason why I like bringing this up is because, we're talking about animation, and, as I mentioned beforehand, I have wrestling background. We've had people on here who have had martial arts, or someone else who has music, and you go that somehow, obviously finds its way back into animation. And here you're talking about, animating on Godzilla and King Kong, and you're like, I could feel that when I'm animating this. I know what this is like. And so it's just a great reminder to people listening to, get out there and do something, physical, or do something, where it's going to come back into animation.
Absolutely. Like I worked with a guy who's really into dance. He knows all these different styles of dancing, or everybody's got something that they're interested in the hobby. You have to keep your brain, you have to keep feeding it, new information, so you don't just repeat old cliches.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Very, very cool. Excuse me. So now you've been in VFX for a bit. Did you transition to feature with Cinesight for a little bit and then now to video games, or how did that work?
No. There was one project in between I should talk about that I went to Method after Scanline. So I actually got to work with an old friend of mine, Matt Coalition, who was our animation soup, and he brought me there with another person I used to work with at Scanline, Kevin Corey, who was my co-lead. And the two of us were leads on a Netflix Halloween special called A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting.
Oh, very cool.
It was super fun. So it was a VFX project. Rachel Tlali was the director. She directed like Freddy Krueger type, horror movies. So this is a kids movie. It's based on a really nice book property. And anyway, so Method was contracted to do these little creatures called toadies. So they're like little monsters, and they're like the Three Stooges. They're kind of goofy. So Method did all these really funny scenes, and I think they expanded our shot range because they saw what we were doing and they really liked it. So they built it into the show. Anyway, it was just an absolute gas. So it was very much like pratfalls and like really slapstick, hit each other over the head kind of stuff. And yeah, it was really.
That's a nice compliment when they're giving you more work because they like what you do. So
and it was another like VFX integration project, so they had to interact with live action characters. So like Pikachu, it was kind of a nice marriage of all my skills, like the cartoon stuff. I did a lot of hand drawn stuff for that too, like just testing out gags, timing, stuff like that.
Very cool. And I've heard you mention a couple different times just talking about leading, and you mentioned you're going to
Mm.
video games
Yeah.
to lead. And one of the things I like about that is because you know how to take other artists and stuff, and that's what you'll be doing here at iAnimate. As you teach these
Yeah.
classes, you know how to lead, you know how to instruct, you know how to train up, and so I love that. What are you looking forward to? Have you taught beforehand? This just be your first kind of go. I know you've mentioned a
Yes.
little bit teaching with the personal training and stuff like that, but
Yeah, I have done a lot of teaching actually. It's mostly in person. So
okay.
I've done, I did a few years at Centennial College teaching animation principles there, and I was program manager there for a year. And then I went to George Brown College and I was in their video game department as an animation principles teacher. And then they got me teaching all sorts of things there. So that was kind of fun. So I was teaching animation skills to generalists. They were going into video games, so they had to learn how to model and rig and light and do
Hmm.
everything, and game engine stuff. So I was there to try to help them maximize their potential with their animation projects, like walk cycles, even voice acting, things like that. But they also needed to know stage combat and things. So a lot of odd classes fell to me. So they're like, "Hey, you're going to teach stage combat," and I'm like, "I don't know anything about that." And they're like, "Well, you have 2 weeks to know." So anyway, don't worry. I didn't teach people with that little experience. What I did do, what I was allowed to do, was to bring in experts, so I could hire like stunt
Oh,
choreographers.
that's great.
Yeah, and it's
Very
like,
cool.
"Oh, we need crash mats. Okay, here's some crash mats. Oh, we need this, we need that." So they would just provide us. It was such a well funded program. So we did stage combat, we did acting, we did stop motion. We had like
Okay.
dragon frame. We had like cameras on wheels. We had everything we needed, and I just got to try so many new things.
Very nice.
Yeah, I really loved my time teaching at George Brown. So I did that for a long time while I was working part-time freelancing while my little guy was growing up. So,
Ah, wonderful. That's
yeah.
fantastic.
So I just kind of mixed it up a little bit. So I had like parenting, teaching, and it's hard to take freelance animation when your time is split, but I
Yeah.
tried to get my hand in as best I could over the years. So teaching was really a helpful, like my bread and butter for a number of years.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what are you enjoying, or what are you looking forward to teaching at iAnimate? Do you know what
I'm
workshop you're going to
actually,
be in?
I am. I'm going to be in a workshop feature 4, which is the lip sync and like close up acting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I'm actually really excited about the detail, right? So it's going to be really fun to like really dig in, and I want to keep people like really excited about their shot right from beginning to the end, because you can kind of, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but you start off all gung ho, and then again it gets like,
And I've heard in VFX too. I haven't animated in VFX, but I've heard that the process can be longer because there's a lot of back and forth, and you can end up revisiting a shot that's you finished you thought a month ago. So keeping enthusiastic about something
yeah,
is very important.
keeping it fresh, and yeah, like keeping bringing like fresh eyes to it. I'm really looking forward to like that level of detail. You don't actually ever get to spend that much time and zeroing in on helping somebody bring up that level of polish. It's really exciting to me.
That's neat.
So,
Do
mhm.
you? We've talked a lot about your physicality and stuff like that. Do you enjoy the acting portion of it? I know you mentioned at the early stage that's kind of why you got into animation, was just that storytelling. Is that something
Yeah,
you really enjoy?
storytelling, yes. Acting, no. I'm not very
Okay.
good at acting in front of the camera. I would love to get like, when you look at like Jeff Gabor and people like that acting, you're just like, oh, I'll have to get someone else to do a proper. Yeah, I shoot all my reference and everything, but it's always like, it's weird though. All my shots end up looking like me. So I was doing like the villain on Justice League, and the guy he's like, that guy just looks like you. I'm sorry. And I'm like, oh, shit, I can't. Yeah. Anyway, abstracted. So I shoot my own reference, but yeah, and my students will be as well. I think the most important thing is to not be shy in front of the camera. Like,
Right, right.
who cares, right?
That's right. That's we're in here to act and have fun, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
can't take it too serious.
right.
You'll be teaching in our workshop or 2 or 4 and
Or
starting
yeah.
in January. So we're
Yes.
looking forward to that. Anything else you come on the top of your head that you're excited about that you've not got to, you haven't done online yet? I've taken online. I've gone through
Oh
the
yeah.
iAnimate. It's a wonderful opportunity. Kind
Oh,
of doing
that's
what we're
great.
doing here. You're getting students from all over. Um, It's live.
I'm really excited about that. Yeah, it's live, so you get to actually talk to people. I'm really
Yes.
happy I have that. My new job at Game On, I get to do this all day. So it's
Yeah.
like one-on-one, looking at people's shots. I'm like sharing my screen, doing drawovers and things like that. So I think it'll be quite similar to that.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Very much so. Well, we're very excited to have you in on the team here. It's always great pulling in people here. I'd love to get in to talk with you and your experience. I love that you're excited about animation and looking forward to transitioning that into our teaching with our students. So, Tara, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to having you here in January.
Great. I'm really happy.
In a new year.
Yes.
2021. Let's hopefully that'll be much better, starting kind of going up here.
Oh, yeah.
But we're looking for a new year. So,
you know what? These are great skills. Like just being able to take online classes and stuff. It's a really good thing to be able to do and level up your skills. Like this is a great time to be doing that.
Particularly with the ability to work remotely, huh?
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much for your time. And with that, we're out.
See ya.